Every human being faces pain. Some feel it in their body, some in their mind, some in their mind, some in their circumstances. Pain is not selective. It visits the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak, the hopeful and the doubtful. The difference between those who rise and those who remain where they are is not the absence of pain, but the way pain is used. Pain is not placed in your path to destroy you, but to awaken the strength that already exists within you. Every moment of discomfort is a message from life asking you to rise above the version of yourself that depends on ease. Growth never announces itself gently. It arrives wrapped in difficulty so that only those with courage will unwrap it. When pain appears, it is not proof that you are failing, but evidence that you are moving beyond familiar limits. The mind resists this process because it prefers safety. Yet safety produces stagnation, and stagnation produces regret. The person who understands pain as a signal for growth no longer asks why suffering has come, but what it is demanding to be developed.
Struggle reveals character the same way fire reveals the strength of steel.
Weakness hides in comfort and shows itself in challenge. When pressure is applied, the real nature of a person is uncovered. Pain forces you to think, to decide, and to act with intention rather than habit. It trains the will to stand firm when excuses try to take control. The moment you choose learning over quitting, pain changes from punishment into preparation. Each obstacle you face carries a lesson that can only be understood by those who endure it. Knowledge gained without struggle is easily forgotten, but wisdom earned through difficulty becomes permanent. Growth requires the breaking of old patterns. The habits that once felt natural must be questioned and reshaped. Pain appears when the mind is stretched beyond its previous boundaries, and this stretch beyond its previous boundaries, and this stretching is the very definition of development. Muscles grow through resistance, character grows through pressure, and confidence grows through survival of adversity. The person who avoids pain also avoids the chance to discover their true capacity. Fear whispers that struggle is a warning, but reason reveals that struggle is an invitation to expand. Each time discomfort is met with persistence, the mind becomes stronger and more disciplined. The greatest limitation a person faces is not circumstance but interpretation. When pain is labeled as failure, it becomes heavy and discouraging. When pain is recognized as training, it becomes purposeful and empowering. The same event that weakens one individual strengthens another, not because the event is different, but because the meaning assigned to it is different. Growth begins the moment responsibility replaces complaint. Instead of blaming the world for hardship, the growing mind asks how this hardship can be used. This question shifts energy from despair to direction and from fear to faith. Pain interrupts routine and forces attention. It demands awareness where carelessness once existed. Through difficulty, the mind becomes alert and focused. Comfort allows laziness to grow, but pain requires effort to survive. This effort becomes a habit, and habit becomes character. Over time, the person who uses pain for growth becomes unrecognizable to their former self. The doubts that once controlled them lose their authority. The fear that once dictated their choices becomes a signal to move forward rather than retreat. Growth is not a sudden miracle, but a gradual strengthening that occurs each time pain is faced with purpose. To quit is to misunderstand the message of difficulty. Pain does not mean stop, it means adapt, improve, and persist it. Is the language through which life instructs the mind to become sharper and the spirit to become firmer. Every challenge endured expands the limits of belief. What once seemed impossible becomes ordinary after enough struggle. In this way, pain becomes the teacher of potential and the guide toward a higher version of self, shaping thought, discipline, and courage through repeated trials and conscious effort. Discipline is the bridge between desire and development. Without it, struggle remains chaos, but with it, struggle becomes structure. Pain without discipline leads to frustration, yet pain guided by discipline produces power. When the mind is trained to act in spite of discomfort, it no longer waits for motivation. It moves by command, and this command creates consistency. Consistency transforms effort into identity. A disciplined person does not depend on feelings to determine actions, they depend on purpose. This is how struggle stops being random and starts becoming intentional. Every hardship tests the strength of will. Discipline answers that test by teaching the mind to remain loyal to long-term goals instead of short-term relief. The undisciplined seek escape from pressure, while the disciplined seek escape from pressure, while the disciplined seek control over reaction. Through repeated acts of self-control, the mind learns that difficulty does not mean danger but development. Each time you rise when rest would be easier, each time you persist when quitting would feel natural, you convert struggle into inner authority. Strength is not inherited through comfort but built through routine effort. Discipline gives meaning to suffering. Without order, pain feels useless. With order, pain becomes part of a plan. The disciplined individual does not ask whether the task feels pleasant, but whether it moves them closer to their aim. In this way, struggle is no longer an enemy, but a requirement. Just as weight builds muscle, resistance builds character. Discipline teaches the mind to accept resistance without resentment. It replaces emotional reaction with thoughtful response. Over time, this habit reshapes personality and refines intention. Struggle reveals weakness, but discipline corrects it. The moment weakness is identified, discipline supplies the method to overcome it. Where fear once controlled behavior, discipline installs courage. Where laziness once delayed progress, discipline installs action. This transformation does not happen suddenly. It happens through repeated obedience to a chosen standard. Every small act of control strengthens the will. Every delayed pleasure sharpens patience. Every completed task reinforces confidence. Strength becomes a product of daily command over impulse. Without discipline, struggle exhausts the mind. With discipline, struggle trains the mind. One leads to collapse, the other to command. Discipline does not remove pain, but it removes panic. It does not remove difficulty, but it removes doubt. It builds trust between intention and action. The mind learns that promises made to the self will be honored. This trust becomes self-respect, and self-respect becomes power. A disciplined life teaches the mind to stay steady under pressure and focused under distraction. Struggle will always exist, but discipline determines its outcome. When effort is organized, resistance becomes predictable. When routine is established, chaos loses influence. The disciplined person does not wait for conditions to improve. They improve their conduct within conditions. They use struggle as a training ground rather than a battlefield. Through control of habits, they gain control of direction. Strength is not found in avoiding difficulty, but in managing it with order and intention. Discipline is the silent force that turns effort into evolution. It sharpens, hardens resolve, and directs energy toward growth. The more disciplined the mind becomes, the less power struggle holds over emotion. What once caused fear begins to produce focus. What once caused pain begins to produce confidence. Struggle remains, but its effect changes. Instead of breaking the spirit, it strengthens the will. Instead of draining belief, it deepens it. Instead of stopping progress, it becomes the path through which progress is earned. An obstacle is never empty. It arrives carrying more than resistance. It carries instruction. Most people see only the barrier and fail to notice the benefit concealed within it. Yet every challenge forces the mind to think in new ways, and new ways of thinking create new possibilities.
When a path is blocked, the imagination is awakened.
When the familiar method fails, invention becomes necessary. In this way, difficulty becomes the doorway to discovery. The obstacle does not remove progress, it redirects it toward higher awareness and stronger skill. Opportunity hides within hardship, because hardship exposes what must be improved. Weak plans are revealed, false confidence is corrected, and careless habits are replaced by careful action. The obstacle does not appear to punish effort, but to refine it. Each delay teaches patience. Each failure teaches accuracy. Each setback teaches endurance. The mind that refuses to learn from difficulty remains trapped by it, while the mind that searches for meaning within struggle converts loss into advantage. Every barrier tests the quality of belief. If belief is shallow, the obstacle feels final. If belief is deep, the obstacle feels temporary. Through resistance, the will is strengthened and the purpose clarified. The person who studies their challenge instead of cursing it begins to see patterns that were invisible in comfort. New methods are discovered only when old ones are. Broken new strength appears only when old limits are reached. What seems like misfortune is often preparation for a greater capacity. Opportunity does not always arrive in attractive form. It comes disguised as disappointment, delay, and defeat. It requires perception to recognize it and courage to use it. The obstacle interrupts routine and forces attention. It demands that effort become intelligent instead of automatic. Through this process, the individual grows in wisdom as well as in power. A smooth road develops speed, but a rough road develops skill. Skill remains long after conditions change. History is shaped by those who saw opportunity where others saw defeat. They understood that resistance is not proof of impossibility, but proof of importance. The greater the challenge, the greater the potential gain. Obstacles protect valuable goals by filtering out weak desire. Only those with firm intention persist long enough to uncover the hidden advantage. This persistence builds authority within the mind. Each conquered difficulty strengthens faith and the ability to overcome the next. The obstacle also serves as a mirror. It reflects the quality of preparation and the strength of discipline. Where weakness appears, improvement becomes necessary. Where fear appears, courage must be developed. In this way, the barrier becomes a guide. It points toward the exact skill or attitude that must be cultivated. Instead of wandering aimlessly, the person with awareness grows in the direction that resistance indicates. Opportunity is not found after the obstacle, it is formed through it. The lesson learned becomes a tool. The habit developed becomes a shield. The strength gained becomes a foundation. Over time, what once caused hesitation becomes a source of confidence. The mind remembers survival and builds expectation of success. Each difficulty endured adds to the store of wisdom that guides future action. An obstacle is a signal that growth is required. It announces that a higher level of ability is available if effort is increased. The challenge becomes the classroom, and experience becomes the teacher. Through pressure, character is shaped. Through delay, vision is sharpened. Through resistance, determination is refined. What begins as an interruption becomes a transformation. The person who accepts this truth no longer asks how to escape difficulty, but how to use it. In this use, hidden opportunity reveals itself as progress in disguise. Persistence is the quiet force that builds strength from repetition. It is not a sudden burst of energy, but a steady commitment to continue when results are delayed. Personal power is not created through talent alone, but through the refusal to abandon effort. Each time the mind chooses to try again after disappointment, it strengthens its authority over doubt. What begins as an act of endurance becomes a habit of courage. The will grows firm when it is exercised daily against resistance, and this firmness becomes the foundation of inner command. Most people stop not because they cannot continue, but because they interpret delay as defeat. Persistence corrects this mistake by teaching the mind to measure progress in effort rather than in immediate reward. When actions are repeated with purpose, confidence slowly replaces uncertainty. The person who persists learns to trust their own discipline. This trust becomes self-respect, and self-respect becomes power. Power does not come from dominating circumstances, but from remaining consistent within them. Persistence reshapes identity. At first, effort feels forced. Over time, effort becomes natural. The repeated choice to continue trains the mind to associate difficulty with determination instead of fear. Each challenge endured without retreat adds weight to belief. The mind records survival and converts it into expectation of success. This expectation influences future behavior, making action more certain and hesitation less common. Personal power grows when hesitation loses its influence. Through persistence, failure changes its meaning. It becomes instruction rather than humiliation. Every attempt that does not succeed refines the next attempt. The person who persists studies mistakes instead of surrendering to them. This study leads to improvement, and improvement leads to mastery. Mastery is the visible form of inner power. It shows that struggle has been organized into skill and that discipline has replaced impulse. Persistence also builds emotional control. The repeated experience of difficulty teaches the mind to remain steady under pressure. Panic is replaced with patience, and frustration is replaced with focus. When emotions are guided rather than obeyed, personal power increases. The individual becomes less reactive and more intentional. Choices are no longer made in fear, but in alignment with long-term purpose. This control over reaction becomes control over direction. The persistent person does not wait for favorable conditions. They create favorable habits. Through regular effort, chaos is reduced and order is established. Order strengthens thought and sharpens purpose. Each small action performed with consistency contributes to a larger pattern of strength. Over time, this pattern becomes character. Character is power expressed through behavior. It commands respect because it is reliable and predictable in its commitment to growth. Personal power does not announce itself loudly. It appears gradually through reliability. Others may not notice the daily effort, but they will notice the results of long endurance. The one who persists builds a reputation with their own mind before the world recognizes it. T is reputation forms confidence that is independent of praise. It is rooted in proof rather than opinion. Persistence connects effort to identity. The person no longer says they are trying, they say they are becoming. Each repeated action confirms that growth is a process rather than an event. Power is accumulated in layers through countless decisions to continue when stopping would be easier. The struggle remains, but the struggler changes. Weakness becomes training, delay becomes discipline, and effort becomes evidence of inner authority. Through persistence, personal power is not imagined but constructed, not wished for but earned, not borrowed from circumstance but built from will. Self-mastery is the highest form of control because it begins within. It is the discipline of directing thought, emotion, and action toward a chosen purpose. Without this inner command, success remains temporary, dependent on chance and external approval. With self-mastery, success becomes stable because it is rooted in character. The individual who governs their impulses governs their future. Every decision made with awareness strengthens authority over habit, and every habit shaped by intention strengthens direction. Lasting success cannot exist without order in the mind. Confusion leads to scattered effort, and scattered effort leads to weak results. Self-mastery brings alignment between desire and behavior. It teaches the mind to act according to reason rather than impulse. When emotion rises, self-mastery provides balance. When fear appears, self-mastery supplies courage. This inner stability allows consistent action regardless of circumstance. Consistency transforms effort into achievement and achievement into confidence. Control over thought is the first step. The mind accepts what it repeatedly entertains. If it entertains doubt, it produces hesitation. If it entertains purpose, it produces persistence. Self-mastery trains attention to remain on constructive ideas instead of destructive ones. It replaces complaint with responsibility and replaces excuse with effort. Over time, the quality of thought determines the quality of action. Action guided by disciplined thought produces results that endure beyond temporary motivation. Emotional mastery follows mental mastery. The person who can guide their reaction guides their reality. Anger, fear, and impatience are natural, but they need not be obeyed. Self-mastery allows emotion to exist without allowing it to rule. Through this control, judgment becomes clearer and decisions become steadier. A calm mind under pressure becomes a source of power. This power is not seen in loud display, but in steady conduct. Stability in emotion allows continuity and effort. Behavior becomes the visible proof of self-mastery. The disciplined person does not depend on mood to determine movement. They act in alignment with principle rather than impulse. Each act of obedience to a chosen standard reinforces belief in the self. This belief becomes self-trust. Self-trust becomes confidence. Confidence produces authority and action. Authority produces respect, and respect reinforces success. This chain is formed through repeated control of small choices. Self-mastery also protects success from decay. Without control, achievement becomes careless. Comfort weakens discipline, and ease dissolves purpose. The mastered mind resists this decline by maintaining structure even in victory. It understands that reward without restraint leads to loss. Through continued order, success remains productive instead of destructive. The mastered individual continues to grow while others become idle. Growth preserves relevance, and relevance preserves value. Lasting success is not built on sudden achievement, but on sustained conduct. Self-mastery resupplies the endurance required for long journeys. It teaches patience in waiting, courage in effort, and wisdom in choice. The person who commands their inner world is not easily shaken by the outer world. Circumstances may change, but direction remains firm. This firmness allows progress to continue when others pause. Self-mastery unites purpose with practice. It removes conflict between intention and action. The individual no longer lives divided between what is known and what is done. This unity produces power because energy is not wasted on contradiction. Effort becomes focused, and focus produces results. These results endure because they are supported by character rather than chance. Through self-mastery, success becomes a habit instead of an accident, a pattern instead of a moment, a structure instead of a surprise, a condition built by daily control over thought, emotion, and action.